What if I told you that Christianity is the only major religion in the world that isn't ultimately centered on a book, a moral code, or even a set of beliefs? It's centered on a person, not merely a teacher, not merely a prophet, not merely a religious leader. A person whose followers claimed was God in human form. But why? Why is Jesus so central to Christianity? Why do Christians pray in his name, worship him, and organize their entire faith around him? Could Christianity exist without Jesus? Or is Jesus himself the very foundation upon which Christianity stands? Today, we're exploring one of the most important questions in all of religion. Welcome back to Sacred Questions. If you've spent any time around Christianity, you've probably noticed something interesting. Christians talk about God, they talk about the Bible, they talk about faith, but more than anything else, they talk about Jesus, his life, his teachings, his death, his resurrection. In fact, Christianity gets its very name from Christ, the title given to Jesus. But why is he so central? What makes Jesus different from every other religious figure in history? And why have billions of people built their lives around him? Let's explore. To understand Christianity, we first have to understand the story it tells. According to the Bible, humanity was created for a relationship with God. Yet something went wrong. Human beings rebelled against God. Sin entered the world. Brokenness followed. From this perspective, the central problem facing humanity isn't merely political, economic, or psychological. It's spiritual. The relationship between humanity and God has been fractured, and Christianity claims that Jesus is God's solution to that problem. This is why Christians don't simply see Jesus as a messenger delivering information about God. They see him as God entering history personally, not sending someone else, coming himself. In the Gospel accounts, Jesus doesn't merely point people toward salvation. He claims to be the way to salvation. That distinction is enormous. Many religious leaders say, "Here is the path." Jesus says, "I am the path." For Christians, that changes everything. Some people ask an important question. Was Jesus simply a remarkable historical figure whose followers gradually exaggerated his significance? It's a fair question. After all, history contains many influential teachers. What makes Jesus different? Even many non-Christians agree that Jesus existed. Most historians accept that he lived in first-century Judea and was crucified by Roman authorities. The debate begins when we ask what his life actually meant. Christians believe Jesus was far more than a teacher. They believe he fulfilled ancient prophecies. They believe he performed miracles. Most importantly, they believe he rose from the dead. The resurrection sits at the heart of Christianity. If Jesus remained dead, Christianity loses its foundation. But if he truly rose from the dead, then his claims demand serious attention. This is why the resurrection has been debated for nearly 2,000 years. It's not merely one doctrine among many. It's the event that makes Jesus central. Without it, Christianity becomes a philosophy. With it, Christianity becomes a radically different understanding of reality itself. Another question often arises. Why do Christians worship Jesus instead of simply respecting him? After all, worship is usually reserved for God alone. This takes us into one of Christianity's most distinctive beliefs. Christians believe Jesus is fully human and fully divine. This idea developed very early in Christian history. The first Christians didn't merely admire Jesus. They prayed to him, sang about him, placed him at the center of their gatherings. This was remarkable because the earliest Christians were Jewish, and Judaism strongly emphasized worshiping only one God. Yet somehow these early believers became convinced that honoring Jesus was not a rejection of monotheism, but a deeper understanding of God's nature. This eventually became part of the doctrine known as the Trinity: one God, three persons, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. For many people, this remains one of Christianity's most challenging ideas. But for Christians, it explains why Jesus receives worship while maintaining belief in one God. Let's move beyond theology for a moment. Why would God choose to become human at all? Philosophically, this is fascinating. Many people imagine God as distant, untouchable, beyond human experience. Christianity presents a radically different picture. It claims that God entered human suffering, experienced hunger, experienced rejection, experienced pain, even experienced death. For Christians, Jesus matters because he bridges the gap between the infinite and the finite, between God and humanity. This idea carries powerful emotional implications. A God who remains distant may be respected, but a God who enters human suffering can be personally known. Whether one accepts this belief or not, it's easy to see why it has resonated with so many people throughout history. Of course, not everyone finds these claims convincing. Many doubts remain. Some ask, if Jesus is so important, why isn't the evidence more obvious? Others wonder, why would God choose one specific person in one specific place and time? Some struggle with miracles. Others struggle with the idea that salvation is connected so closely to Jesus. These are serious questions, and Christianity has wrestled with them for centuries. Different Christian traditions offer different answers. Some emphasize historical evidence. Others focus on personal experience. Others point to philosophical arguments. Yet, regardless of their differences, Christians generally agree on one thing: remove Jesus, and Christianity ceases to be Christianity. Everything ultimately revolves around him. But perhaps the deepest reason Jesus is central isn't theological or philosophical, it's relational. For Christians, Jesus is not simply someone who lived long ago, he's believed to be alive now. The Christian faith isn't merely about agreeing with certain doctrines, it's about entering a relationship. Think about it this way. Most religions focus heavily on principles. Christianity certainly contains principles, but at its core is a person. Christians don't merely ask, "What should I believe?" They ask, "Who is Jesus?" Because they believe the answer to that question changes everything. Your understanding of God, your understanding of humanity, your understanding of suffering, your understanding of hope, even your understanding of death itself. So why is Jesus so central to Christianity? Because Christians believe he is more than a prophet, more than a teacher, more than a revolutionary, more than a symbol. They believe he is the point where God and humanity meet. The one through whom forgiveness is offered, the one through whom salvation comes, the one through whom God's character is most clearly revealed. Of course, not everyone accepts those claims, and thoughtful people continue debating them today. But whether you believe in Christianity or not, one fact is impossible to ignore. No figure has shaped Christianity, or perhaps human history itself, more profoundly than Jesus of Nazareth. The entire faith stands or falls on who he was. And that raises a question every person eventually has to confront. Who do you believe Jesus really was? What do you think? Why do you think Jesus became the central figure of Christianity? Do you see him primarily as a teacher, a prophet, the Son of God, or something else entirely? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective and continue the conversation respectfully. If you enjoyed this exploration of faith, history, and philosophy, make sure to subscribe to Sacred Questions and turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode. And if there's a difficult religious question you'd like us to explore next, leave it in the comments. Until next time, keep asking, keep seeking, and keep exploring the questions that matter most.